What is up, my MTG nerds, my MTG bros? It is the start of a new year, so whether last year was good or bad for you, I hope that this year is even better. With that said, today's deck was built around the Deepest Epoch. It's one of the new gods from Ixalan that says, whenever you cast an instant spell from your hand, it gains Rebound. So the instant gets exiled when it resolves, and you may cast it again for free at your next upkeep. It's a cool effect and can be quite powerful whether you're getting double draws, double removal spells, double burn. There's just a lot of cool potential here. My initial plan was to run a Dimir deck because when this creature dies, it flips into a land with 3 time counters on it, and when the last counter is removed, it flips back to the creature side, and black has a card called Render Inert, which can remove up to 5 counters from target permanent. But that deck felt like it was trying too hard, so I quickly moved on. Next, I tried a mono blue deck built around generating a lot of tokens, but that felt very clunky and my early game was pretty much non-existent. So I finally moved on to Izzet because while blue didn't have the creatures I needed to sustain in the early game, red has great options in Young Pyromancer and Electrostatic Infantry. So after some playtesting and some tweaks, I finally found a usable deck list that felt solid and had the potential explosiveness that I knew could be achieved, and it's very satisfying to pop off with this deck. Watching all your triggers go onto the stack is very nice. The final deck list, which will be linked down below, is 2 copies of Balmor Battlemage Captain, 4 Electrostatic Infantry, 4 Young Pyromancers, 1 Deepest Might, 3 Deepest Epochs, 4 Considers, 2 Fading Hopes, 4 Frostbites, 2 Ops, 4 Play with Fires, 1 Shore Up, 2 Lightning Strikes, 3 Seek New Knowledges, 2 Thirst for Discovery, 9 Snow-Covered Islands, 10 Snow-Covered Mountains, and 3 Volatile Fjords. And with that said, let's see the deck in action. My first opponent with this deck list is Boki 101. We're on the play and our opening hand looks good, so we keep. Our only turn 1 play is Consider, so I cast that during my turn, ditching a mountain and then drawing an Electrostatic Infantry. If you have a turn 1 Opt or Consider, bro, please just play it. I don't need you to hold priority during my entire first turn just to try and fake me out. This isn't a tournament, it's not even ranked, it's not that serious. Now, my opponent dropped a Greedy Freebooter, which gives them a scry and a treasure when it dies, and I just play out my infantry. They Shieldred's Edict me, but that's fine because they don't have any board pressure yet, and they didn't even swing. In an attempt to find a land for next turn, I cast Thirst for Knowledge, and I whiff. Now, having a land for turn 4 is pretty concerning, and I end up discarding 1 Deepest Epoch and an infantry. My opponent then sets up an Underworld Dreams, which is very scary and also very annoying. I cast an infantry and then Consider in hopes of finding a land drop, which I do not find still. I feel like I'm being punished for surveilling away that early mountain. And now we're having a very bad day because our opponent drops a Shieldred on us, and at this point, I have 0 patience. I played 11 games with this deck list, and 5 of my opponents played Shieldred. That's every other match, and that's not even including all the games I played before this deck list. Like, it was just getting ridiculous. Luckily, we do find land number 4, and we can get down our Deepest Epoch. They play Gix in response, and now we really need this god of ours to pull its weight because things are not looking great for us. We draw a Fading Hope and go down to 7 life. I then decide to play out my Young Pyromancer, swing for 4, and then pass while still holding up a Fading Hope and a Lightning Strike. When my opponent swings out, I decide to Fading Hope the Shieldred, which makes my infantry big enough to trade with their Gix. I don't block the Freebooter though because I noticed that they had also missed land drops and I really didn't want them to get that treasure. They recast Shieldred, but our Fading Hope promptly returns it back to their hand. We then Seek New Knowledge, bottoming another Pyromancer. And then we set up Balmor and swing out for big damage, setting our opponent's life from 20 down to just 8. Shieldred is back again. I still don't give them a treasure. And we Seek New Knowledge for free, buffing our entire board with Balmor. Then I kill Shieldred once and for all, making our board look absolutely insane. And Boki 101 is a good sport and stays until the end, even though I was being a bit salty earlier in the match. But that's what it looks like when this deck pops off. For game 2, my opponent is Ilvaya. We're on the draw, and looking at our opening hand, we're missing a red mana source, but with 2 Considers in our hand, I like our chances of finding one, and we keep it anyway. We draw an Electrostatic Infantry, and our first Consider does find us a red source. It's tapped, but it'll do. Our opponent passes it back to us, so we play our tap land and Consider again. We end up drawing another island. Our opponent does nothing again, and we find a much welcomed mountain. So we slam that down and play one of our Balmors, expecting a removal spell here. And, like I expected, they kill it with a Swift End. They play out their Murderous Rider, and by now, I'm already a bit salty. For my turn, I drop 2 infantries, hoping that at least one will survive. My opponent's follow-up is a Phyrexian Obliterator, which is an enormous pain to deal with. I draw a Deepest Epoch for turn and decide to play as well as send a Play with Fire face so I can start digging for a bounce effect to get rid of the Obliterator. I scrawl Frostbite to the bottom and don't attack. And guess what my opponent plays next? That's right, it's a Shieldred. I was not exaggerating about how often I saw this card last night. So after some emote spamming from my part, I take 5 damage from the Obliterator and they pass. We get our free play with fire here, and I send it at Shieldred, trying to play to an out of finding 3 more burn for it. It's our best hope to kill it in this position. I draw a Fading Hope for turn, which is actually what I wanted for the Obliterator. I then seek New Knowledge, and we actually find more burn with a Frostbite, and that feels super awesome because it means that I made the right call with my play with fire. I decide to set up Balmor now and kill Shieldred. This does, however, leave up their Obliterator, but I'm liking our position. They Village Rites in response, no big deal, and then we swing 17 trample damage at them. They block with their Murderous Rider, leaving them at 6 life. At this point, they drop a Veto and Revenge of Ravens. That is a very dangerous combo to see right now because I'm going down to 8 life, and if I swing out, that'll kill me. So first we seek New Knowledge, but I've already got my game plan. I'm going Fading Hope their Veto to prevent the extra damage and then swing with as few creatures as necessary, taking into account his life gain. But my opponent sees the end, so they concede, and that's game 2. My opponent for game 3 is Brisbane. We're on the play with a solid opening hand. We play a Mountain to hold up a play with fire, and then we use it to destroy the opponent's Bilious Skull Dweller. On turn 2, we seek New Knowledge and bottom a Thirst for Discovery before passing. My opponent then plays a Hobbling Zombie, which is not a card you see very often. I begin turn 3 by considering and throwing away a Deepest Epoch because we already have one in hand. I then play an Electrostatic Infantry and pass. My opponent then plays a Forest, leading me to believe that they're a Finn the Fangbearer Toxic deck. My opponent then cuts down my Infantry, plays a Vampire of the Dire Moon, and then casts Elven Farsight. They scry 3 to then reveal and draw another Skull Dweller. They swing for 2 and pass. We draw a tapped land for turn 4, so I play that and pass, holding up removal. My opponent plays out their Skull Dweller, as well as a Morbid Opportunist, which I kill with a Frostbite. They then swing 3 damage, which I take. They pass, and I play a Deepest Epoch for turn 5. With that out and a play with fire still in my hand, I'm feeling good. That is, until my opponent drops one of the most annoying cards in the game right now. That's right, Shieldred. Again. Someone really needs to tell black players that there are other good black creatures available to play with. Anyway, we take 4 and then it's our turn. Luckily, we top deck a Frostbite. That plus play with fire will be enough to get Shieldred out of my sight. So I play a Balmor and kill Shieldred. I then swing 6 in the air and pass. My opponent returns Shieldred from their graveyard to their hand and swings out. I take 4 damage, going down to 5 life. It is now turn 7, and I use my free burn spells to kill Hobbling Zombie and Vampire of the Dire Moon. I cast an Opt, which finds us a young Pyromancer. I play that and another Opt, making us a token to block with and buffing our creatures a ton. I swing 13 damage in the air, setting my opponent down to 4 life. They recast Shieldred and swing out. I trade with both of their creatures. I then almost throw the game by casting one of our 2 free Ops, and that sets me down to 1 life. I take no more chances and just swing for lethal in the air, dealing 7 and winning the match. Our 4th and final opponent for this video is Wayne. Our opponent is going first, which means we are on the draw, and our opening hand had no red mana, so we mulligan down to 6, which means we're starting at a double disadvantage going into this match. So that is awesome. And honestly, it's something I typically forget about when playing matches. I usually expect myself to win regardless of how the match starts, but realistically, I shouldn't win a game where I'm starting at a double disadvantage. You know what I mean? It's just something that I think gets forgotten when most people play. So turn 2, we play out our Electrostatic Infantry. It gets exiled by Vanishing Verse. Doesn't feel good, but it is what it is. So for turn 3, we're going to seek New Knowledge in an attempt to try and find some more red mana. We don't hit a land, so we're going to bottom Thirst for Discovery. And then we're going to consider, again, trying to find a land. We draw an island, which is better than nothing. I would have preferred a mountain, but the game doesn't want us to have mountains, apparently. So we're going to pass back the turn because I don't want our Deepest Epoch just to get played out and die to removal. Our opponent does nothing, they just pass it back to us. And so now I play out Deepest Epoch, and guess what our opponent has? You guessed it correctly, it's a removal spell. And unfortunately, it is an exile effect, which means that our Deepest Epoch will not flip over to the land side, which we could then potentially get back in the future. Now, our opponent's been struggling for land themselves, and they're going to do a fancy trick with their Iganjo. They're going to tap it for a white to then replay a new Iganjo to be able to tap that to cast Shieldred. Shieldred, Shieldred, Shieldred. Would it have been anything else? Really? Really? So anyway, we're out here struggling a bit because we still don't have a second red source, which is a bummer. So I play out the Young Pyromancer, we Fading Hope their Shieldred, and we pass, because that's about all that we can do. Now, our opponent still doesn't find their 4th land drop, which is very good for us, and they play out a Glissa Sunslayer, because they don't have enough mana to replay their Shieldred. So we play a Balmor, and we pass, because we only have 1 red source of mana, and we have 2 red spells in hand, so not really much we can do. Our opponent plays a Phyrexian Arena. That's very scary for us because they did hit their 4th land drop, and now they're going to be outdrawing us, outvaluing us. And as soon as they get their Shieldred online next to that Phyrexian Arena, we're going to be in a really bad spot. We top deck an Electrostatic Infantry, which is yet again another red spell, and we can only cast 1 red spell per turn. So we play the infantry, we pass. Our opponent gets their extra draw. And I think it's about time that we see Shieldred again. What do you guys think? Yeah? Is that his move? Surprisingly, not. He does not replay the Shieldred. I think he's scared of all of our blue mana, which is hilarious because I don't like running counterspells. I'm not that kind of person. So, I do the only thing that we can do. I play with Fire Their Face to try and find, yet again, another red source of mana. So, we get the Scry. We are going to draw into yet another island. This is absolutely ridiculous at this point. And we don't have any, I don't know. We don't have a really great attack here because Glissa can just kill whatever we swing at it. So, I'm just going to swing Balmor in the air for 2. It's not much, but it's something. Our opponent's not done with us yet, though. They're going to Vanishing Verse our Electrostatic Infantry. So, yeah, it's not looking real good out here. We're running pretty low on gas. The lack of a second red source has really been punishing for us this game. In fact, we even drew the Deepest Might, which we haven't gotten to see yet. But I can't cast him, so it's not super helpful. Not that I think it would be super game-changing even if we did get it out, because it really just increases your burn damage up to 4 if it is less than 4 when targeting an opponent. So, like, our play with fire goes from 2 damage to 4. But only if it's going face. So, like, it would be cool to cast it, but it wouldn't really be enough to, you know, swing the game in our favor. So, here I attempt to Frostbite their Glissa. They have a Tyvar's stand in response, which feels very bad. So, we end the turn, and I don't really think there's anything that we could top deck at this point in time that would be huge for us. Seek New Knowledge would be good. Make use out of our blue mana while also finding more gas. But it's about the best I could think of. Now, our opponent plays a Roaming Throne, which is a very cool card, and they name Phyrexian. So, Roaming Throne is going to double triggers of Phyrexian creatures that they have, which is extremely terrifying. So, for instance, you can see them swing their Glissa Sunslayer at us. We let them connect, which means they get to choose one of Glissa's abilities, and they choose it twice to draw a card and lose 1 life. But they actually end up gaining a lot of life thanks to Shieldred's triggers also doubling up. And you may be wondering, how am I going to get out of this? The answer is, I don't. This one was a loss that I wanted to show you guys.